There are some people who enter this world carrying something no school can teach, no discipline can drill into them, no environment can shape. It doesn't come through striving or ambition, and no repetition can summon it. It arrives with the soul, woven into their essence, untouched by time or influence. You won't always see it. They don't wear it like a badge. In fact, most of the time, they move through the world unnoticed. Quiet, grounded, unassuming. Their power isn't loud. It's deeply felt. They don't hunger for recognition, nor do they perform their wisdom for praise. They simply are. And in that presence, there's something ancient, something that makes you pause and wonder, like hearing a melody you don't remember learning, but somehow know by heart. They could be young, barely touched by the world, yet their eyes hold the weight of lifetimes. There's a sadness in them that doesn't seem to belong to this life, and a warmth that feels like home to those who've been lost too long. What they carry is not magic in the way we often imagine it. It's not prophecy or mind reading. It's the gift of seeing without looking, of knowing without explanation. They read the undercurrents. They sense the fractures in another's voice, the grief behind a smile. Where others look away, they lean in, not to fix, but to understand. And that understanding, quiet, gentle, unwavering, heals in ways no words ever could. They don't preach, they don't persuade, they don't push. There's no ego in their offering, just presence. And in that presence, people soften. Begin to remember pieces of themselves long buried beneath the noise. These are the souls who seem to live in two worlds at once, one foot in the visible, one resting in the invisible. They don't cling to reason to make sense of things. They trust the symbols, the dreams, the silence between the notes. Carl Jung once spoke of the collective unconscious, archetypes moving beneath our awareness. These souls tap into that language like it's their first tongue. They see stories unfolding in everything. A crow circling overhead, a certain line in a book, a stranger's passing glance. Nothing is random to them. Everything speaks, and they listen with the kind of stillness that makes others feel seen, sometimes for the first time. People may call them loners, too sensitive, distant, but they are simply tuned to a different frequency, a frequency where everything is connected, sacred, vibrating with memory. Even if they can't explain how they know, they just know. They carry this knowing like a flame cupped gently in their hands, not to light the way for others, but to remind them they still have their own. They don't seek to change the world in grand, visible ways, but somehow they do, just by being, just by listening, just by offering their silence as sanctuary. What they offer can't be measured, but it's felt in the softening of the shoulders, in the breath someone didn't know they were holding, in a glance that says, "You're not alone." They aren't trying to be anything, and maybe that's why they're everything. Anchors in a world that never stops spinning, carriers of something older than time, quieter than words, deeper than understanding. And even if the world never quite sees them fully, they see it. They always have. They see the outer world not as separate, but as a reflection. Every storm, every silence, every fleeting glance holds meaning. So they move differently, not faster, not louder, but with an awareness that feels like reverence. You might say they walk through life like they're remembering a dream they once lived, a dream filled with meaning too delicate for language. And that's why people often don't understand them. They feel too much, say too little, carry too deeply. But it's not that they're lost. It's that they're listening to a rhythm no one else hears. Their timing isn't governed by clocks or calendars. It's tuned to the movement of the soul. They don't chase urgency. They move with the eternal. That stillness they carry makes others uncomfortable. In a world addicted to speed and noise, their silence feels like a mirror. But they don't run from life. They live it fully, quietly, with grace. They don't need to understand every mystery to be in love with it. And somehow, their mere presence becomes healing. Not through effort, not through intention, just through being. They balance the energy in a room. They soften what's rigid. They remind others of something they didn't know they had forgotten. When someone comes near them with an open heart, something stirs, a flicker of remembrance, a whisper that says, "You've always been more than this." They awaken a truth buried beneath layers of noise and forgetting. It's not because they carry answers, but because they carry a frequency, a signal from something ancient and vast. They've known pain, yes, carried lifetimes of it, but they've transmuted it into vision, into calm, into love that doesn't need to possess. They love like the sky holds the stars, without grip, without demand. They guide without directing, show up without overtaking. Their presence is enough, always has been. And this presence, this gift, didn't come through lineage or reward. It was carved into them by long journeys, by the kind of sorrow that teaches you to see beyond appearances, by wisdom that blooms in the dark. That's why they don't rush, why their gaze feels like it's met you before. Every moment they live has been lived before, and yet somehow still feels new. They feel life all the way to the edges, not just the joy, but the ache beneath it. Not just the moment, but the eternity inside it. They walk through complexity with a kind of grace most can't name. While the world fears the void, they sit inside it. While others try to escape silence, they make it sacred, because they know that it is there, in the quiet, in the unseen, where truth waits with infinite patience. And yes, they often feel like they don't belong, because they didn't come here to blend in. They came to remind, to awaken, not with speeches or declarations, but through the way they stand, the way they breathe, the way they witness the world with eyes that have seen beyond it. They don't need a stage. Just one person, one soul ready to remember is enough. They won't try to convince you. They won't push you to change. But if you're near one, and something inside you begins to shift, begins to soften, begins to remember, that's their gift in motion. They're not here to lead a revolution. They're here to restore the sacred thread in you, to remind you that the soul has never forgotten. And Carl Jung saw that thread, the collective, the archetypal memory living deep inside us all. These souls touch it, stir it, and without a single word, awaken it. Some people don't have to study symbols or memorize archetypes to understand them. They simply live them. In their eyes, you might glimpse the healer, in their silence, the sage in their presence, the quiet gatekeeper. They never chase these roles. They just are. And it is that effortless embodiment, that calm refusal to perform, where their true power lies. But that kind of depth can come with a cost. Often it leads them into solitude, not because they dislike others, but because the noise of the world can feel like static against their frequency. Seeing too much, feeling too deeply, touching what others run from, it weighs heavy, and for a while they may believe their sensitivity is a flaw. But something shifts when they realize it's not a burden. It's the threshold, the door they were always meant to walk through. And when they finally do, when they choose to live from that sacred center, something around them begins to change. They don't push it. They don't demand to be seen. But those who can look beyond the surface, who sense rather than stare, feel something ancient radiating from them. Because these souls weren't born just to remember. They came to hold space, to offer light without glare, to bring balance without needing control. In a world obsessed with immediacy and spectacle, such presence often goes unnoticed. The world wants fast fixes, invisible proofs. But these souls carry a different medicine, slower, deeper, invisible to the hurried eye. They move through layers others don't even see. They read symbols in silence, understand truths through stillness. And because of that, though their footsteps may be quiet, their impact is immense. The wisdom they carry isn't earned in classrooms or collected through conversations. It was etched into them by trials most wouldn't survive. Pain didn't make them hard, it refined them. Solitude didn't break them, it shaped their listening. And that long walk through inner terrain has given them a rare strength. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that heals by simply existing. At the heart of it all, what they carry is love, but not the kind we speak about in poems or stories. This love doesn't seek to be returned. It isn't born from hunger or lack. It flows from a soul that has emptied itself of illusions and found peace in presence. It's the kind of love that lingers without claiming, that transforms just by being near. And when a lost soul comes close, someone who has forgotten who they are, someone barely holding on, something ancient stirs. It's not flattery, it's not admiration, it's recognition, like the meeting of two memories long kept apart. No words are needed, no logic can explain it. It just happens, like sunlight cracking open a sky that had forgotten light. They don't try to awaken others. They don't set out to be teachers. They just inhabit their truth fully. And in doing so, they become a lighthouse in the fog, a place where others find themselves again. Even when the world seems to fall apart, they remain grounded, not because they don't hurt or question, but because they've made peace with the uncertainty. They've built their inner home strong enough to hold storms, and that's what makes them anchors, still points in a spinning world. There's no arrogance in their knowing. In fact, they often wonder if they belong at all, because what they feel, what they see, how they move, it rarely fits the mold. But in the quiet, they remember. Their difference isn't confusion, it's compass. Their softness isn't fragility, it's sacred perception. And when they finally stop apologizing for who they are, when they stop trying to shrink or explain, their energy begins to shift. It doesn't rise with noise. It expands inward, like a light deep in the belly of the earth, illuminating everything without ever needing to rise. This gift they carry, it can't be mimicked. It doesn't come from effort or eloquence. It comes from alchemy, from pain transfigured, from lifetimes that taught them how to stand still in the fire and find beauty in ashes. That's what makes them different. That's what makes them necessary. They don't lead with force, nor do they need to. Just by being, they shift something in the air, subtle but undeniable. Their presence teaches more than any lesson ever could. They don't preach, they don't impose. And while the world may not always understand them, they understand the world in ways that defy logic. They've seen it all before, the rise and fall, the noise and hunger, the endless chasing, and still, they don't judge. They hold space. They walk beside, quietly, patiently, without needing to be first or right or known. They don't demand that others wake up on their schedule. They honor the rhythm of each soul, knowing some seeds take lifetimes to bloom. Their purpose was never to shine so brightly that they blind. They were born to spark quiet embers, to remind the heart of something ancient, something essential. They are rarely center stage, but their energy sustains what is sacred in us all. Even when they remain in the background, it is their frequency that holds the invisible threads of healing together. When one of these souls enters your life, something begins to shift, often without you even realizing it. The world doesn't suddenly change, but you begin to see it differently. You start noticing what you used to overlook. You begin questioning things that once seemed certain. It's like their presence unlocks a door you didn't know was closed. Not by showing you the light, but by helping you remember your own. They don't offer answers wrapped in certainty. What they bring is depth, a depth that doesn't rush, doesn't pull, doesn't demand. In their calm, you remember that growth isn't measured in speed. That spiritual time isn't linear. That pain, when seen through compassionate eyes, can become a gateway. That emptiness isn't a curse, but a canvas. Maybe this is the true core of their gift, not to comfort you with illusions, but to help you find the strength to sit in the silence of the unknown. They guide you inward without telling you what to find, because they've been there. They've stood in the ruins and waited for their own voice to rise again. So when they speak, when they do choose words, you feel the difference. It's not theory, it's truth, shaped by experience. And even in their silence, they teach. In how they listen, in how they truly see you, in the way they remain fully present, asking nothing in return. They don't place themselves above. They don't rush ahead. They walk beside. Their humility is the doorway. Their stillness, a soft invitation to return to yourself. In a world spinning fast, chasing trends, worshiping what's new, these souls are anchored in what is eternal. They don't bend for approval. They don't contort to belong. Their allegiance is not to noise, but to the quiet knowing within. And even when that path leaves them walking alone, they stay true, because what they follow can't be found in the crowd. It lives deep within them, older than time, untouched by opinion. Most will pass by, unable to name what they've felt. But those who are ready, those whose hearts have ripened through pain, stillness, or longing, will know. They'll sense it in the quiet, in the glance that doesn't look through them, but into them. They'll feel it like a home they never knew they'd left. No words needed. The soul will recognize its reflection, and that is the miracle. Their impact isn't loud. It's not measured in applause or visibility. It lives in the slow unfolding that begins in those who come close. A shift, a memory, a seed, and maybe years will pass. Maybe it'll seem forgotten, but one day without warning, that seed will bloom in the quiet of someone's becoming, and that's all it ever needed to do. There are those who carry a power so deep it can't be defined by action or title. It lives in who they are, and sometimes even they don't fully understand it. They feel strange in their own skin, like they were dropped into a world that speaks a different language. They doubt their softness, apologize for their intuition, carry shame that never belonged to them, try to mold themselves to a rhythm that constantly throws them off beat. But eventually, when the soul is ready, clarity begins to rise. Not all at once, but like a fog lifting just enough to see the path beneath your feet. They realize they were never meant to fit in. They came to remember and to help others remember too. They weren't built to shout louder than the world. They were born to bring back the silent music, the sound that lives beneath the noise, in the stillness, in the breath between words. And when they finally stop fighting it, when they stop dimming their light to make others more comfortable, a quiet magic unfolds. They stop running. They stop seeking. They become still. And in that stillness, they become a doorway, not just for themselves, but for others. People come near them and something opens, something shifts, not because they try to change others, but because their presence says, without a word, you've had the light all along. They don't push anyone to awaken. They don't lead with commands or truths. They simply live in such a way that others begin to feel their own soul again. And suddenly there it is, that familiar flicker, that soft warmth that's been there all along, just forgotten under the dust of distraction. It's not a grand awakening. It's more like remembering a melody you didn't know you still knew. A flame that never went out, only needed a little air to rise again. That's what they offer. Not answers, not direction, but presence. The kind of presence that doesn't fill silence, but makes space for it. That doesn't pull you forward, but helps you pause long enough to realize you're already where you need to be. And in that space, something loosens. The grip of old pain softens. The sharp edges of the past dull into understanding. And the future? It stops screaming. The present becomes livable, breathable, a place where you can finally belong. That's their gift, to make the world feel like home again. Not through fixing or preaching, but simply by being. They don't need to fill rooms with words or seek applause. Their energy speaks in a quieter way. It's the way you feel safe without knowing why. The way you feel seen without having said a word. They bring the sacred back into the everyday, not with rituals or rules, but through their own vibration, shaped by all they've walked through. Because the truth is, they didn't come into this world with their light fully formed. They built it, piece by piece, from every shadow they sat with, every wound they tended, every silence they chose to listen to. They've lost and found themselves over and over. They've carried their pain with dignity, not as a weight, but as a lantern. And now they carry that light quietly, not to be admired, but to help others find their own. They don't need to ask permission to love, to hold, to lift. They've already given themselves that permission. And they understand in their bones that the gift they carry isn't theirs alone. It belongs to something greater, to the soul of the world, to the current that flows through all of us. So they give freely. They offer without needing to be noticed. And somehow, just by existing, they help others return to the parts of themselves they thought were lost forever. That is their power. That is their offering. And it can't be taught. It can't be faked. It was forged in silence, strengthened in solitude, and made real through surrender. Even when they can't fully name it, they walk with that rare blend of humility and quiet knowing. There's no need to prove, no urgency to explain, just a calm that says, I'm here, and in their presence, something deep inside you begins to stir. Not a thought, not an idea, but a sensation, ancient and familiar, a slow rising from within, as if the silence you've shared, the energy you've felt, the words that seem to echo in places you didn't know existed, are all part of a truth that was always there, just waiting for you to see it. And when that remembering begins, the chase begins to slow. The comparisons you used to make start to dissolve. The ache to belong, to be seen, to be enough. It starts to fade. Not because the world changes, but because you've started to come home. Home to something that never left you, home to what matters, and you begin to see that the real gift these souls carry isn't in awakening you with effort. It's in reflecting the sacredness you already hold. They don't try to teach you who to be. They don't ask you to follow. They don't speak in commands. They just live quietly, honestly, and in doing so, they shift something in you. Their energy speaks beyond language, beyond understanding. And that's the beauty. You don't have to understand them. You just have to feel. What they awaken isn't always immediate. It's not a sudden spark, but a slow, quiet unraveling. One day you'll realize that a fear you've always carried doesn't grip you the same way, that a choice came easier, that a silence feels more peaceful. You won't always trace it back to them, but the shift is real. That's their gift. They awaken something deep without ever asking to be seen. And the moment you begin living from that place, from your truth, not from fear or approval or performance, the cycle they began in you finds its purpose. Because the true power of an ancient soul isn't in what they hold. It's in how they help others rise into their own. If something in these words has stirred you, if your breath slowed, your chest softened, if you felt seen in a way you didn't expect, it's not by chance. It may be that you too are one of them. That same gift lives in you. Maybe it's been buried beneath years of trying to fit in, trying to not feel too much, trying to be what the world understands. But you don't need to earn it. You don't need to search for it. It's already yours. Even if you're still learning how to carry it, it's been with you from the beginning. And now something inside you is remembering. And in that remembering, the way you move begins to change. You stop chasing ideals. You stop performing a version of yourself. You begin to walk with the kind of honesty that doesn't need permission. The version of you that has always lived quietly beneath the noise, sensitive, deep, wildly aware, is no longer something to hide. It's your compass. It's your truth. And from this place, you no longer reject the parts of you that once felt too much, the wounds, the softness, the stillness. You see them now for what they are, the path your soul chose, the shaping of your gift, the light and shadow learning to dance in the same body. It's no longer about being flawless, it's about being whole, and that is enough. That has always been enough. Old souls were never meant to be perfect. Their strength lies not in how flawlessly they live, but in how many times they've broken and come back whole. They've fallen, questioned everything, lost themselves in silence, and still found their way back. Not by force, but by surrender. And each time they returned, something deeper awakened in them. Not pride, not invincibility, but a kind of quiet strength that can hold the shattered pieces of life without turning bitter. Maybe now you understand why you've always felt apart from the world, why surface-level conversations feel empty, why the chaos around you can make your bones ache, why you notice things others miss, feel things others avoid, and carry a depth you didn't ask for. It was never a flaw. It was a calling, a soul call that's been echoing through your life, nudging you to remember. And if you've arrived here, if something in these words has stirred you, it isn't coincidence. You were drawn here because something in you already knew. You've always known. This resonance you feel, this frequency that feels like home, it's not something outside of you. It is you. And now that you've allowed yourself to feel it, to breathe it in, to stop pretending it isn't there, something shifts. You become the proof. a living reminder of what it means to carry a sacred gift without needing to announce it. Jung once called it the soul's remembering, our connection to the unseen, to the collective, to all that we've ever been and all we're still becoming. Now you walk differently, not because you figured everything out, but because you no longer betray your truth. You're not rushing for approval. You're not shrinking to be understood. You move with clarity, with presence, because you remember now. And from this new place, you simply can't unsee what you see. You can't ignore your sensitivity or hide your depth just to make others feel more comfortable. That part of your story's over, because now you know everything that once felt like too much is exactly what makes you enough. And this remembering, it doesn't make you superior. It just makes you honest. It roots you deeper into who you are. It lets you finally exhale, stop running, stop pleasing, and return to what's always lived quietly inside you. And in that return, your strength rises. Not a strength that roars, but the kind that holds space, that brings peace just by being, that carries medicine in silence. The spiritual gift you carry isn't something to earn. It's not a role or a reward. It's a vibration, a truth you live without having to name it. And yes, you do carry it, even if you're still learning how to trust it, even if some days feel unclear, even if you're still healing, because now you see all of it belongs. Even the parts you once rejected, even your softness, your sensitivity, your uncertainty, they hold wisdom. Every moment you live from this place becomes an offering. Every word you speak from your center becomes a mirror for someone else to find their own. Every quiet choice you make to be real plants light in places that desperately need it. And when you let yourself be seen without armor, without performance, you become a permission slip for others. You awaken parts of them they didn't know were still alive. You don't have to tell them what to do. Just by being who you are, you remind them of what they are. And that is the true miracle. Even if the world doesn't fully understand you, even if some days you feel like no one else speaks your language, you are not alone. There are others like you. Quiet lights scattered across the globe. Old souls who are also remembering, also awakening, also reclaiming their truth. And every time one of you rises, the whole world feels it. Every time one of you stops hiding, the collective breathes deeper. Because the awakening of a single soul is never just personal. It ripples, it echoes, it transforms. And you are part of that. You are part of this. Even if you forget, even when doubt creeps back in, you already know, deep in your bones, in the quietest part of you, the part that's always known. Because your soul has walked these paths before. It knows the way, even if your mind has forgotten. Beneath the surface of the noise, beyond the weight of fear and expectation, there's a quiet glow that never went out. A knowing that's been waiting patiently, not to be learned, but to be remembered. If something in these words touched you, don't brush it off. Listen, not with your logic, but with the stillness of your heart. This isn't just another message. It's a mirror, a call. And if you feel it deeply, it's because a part of you has already begun to wake up. Stay with it. Stay with you. And if this space feels like home, like something you've long searched for without knowing, then maybe you've found what your soul has been guiding you toward all along. And if someone you love still walks quietly with a sleeping light inside them, don't hesitate. Share this. Sometimes one whisper is enough to awaken a whole world. You're not alone. Not now. Not ever.